Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the July meeting of the New York City Transit Authority, also known as the Subway and Bus Committee. We meet every month or every other month and a half, depending upon what corporate governance tells us to. Are there any public speakers? I'll bet you Murray Bowden is first.
Murray Bowden is first.
Just bet that gentleman sitting at the table, or he was sitting there, his name is Barry. I don't know quite how to say this, but I've asked the Inspector General of both the MTA and the Port Authority to look into some allegations that need to be corrected and can't be corrected internally. There are some systems in place that people just don't want to change, and it's going to take looking out from the outside. I've also asked the IG of the state of New York to look into these problems. I want to make that out front so that you know I'm not blindsiding anybody, and if anybody finds out that they're being called to answer some questions, it's because I started something that needs to be straightened out once and for all. I've also brought my grandson with me today again. I hope he'll have some chance to speak. There are a number of good people around here who have been extremely helpful over the years, and I could not have done this without mentoring and being taught by people from here. I need to talk about one of those things that people keep getting wrong and don't understand. You're back with the lights on the buses again, and they stop you from using the blue lights, and sort of correctly, because blue lights are emergency lights. And so you've come up with an adequate solution, which are the purple lights, used primarily for Easy Pass and things like that, but there are not. You should know that I've been involved in writing the manual Uniform Traffic Control Devices for about 15 years. I've gone to the meeting twice a year, and I've sat in the meetings where all this is discussed. So I discuss the colors primarily from road lines because I've been involved in it for years. The choice of purple was an open color and permitted to use. Blue was not. So people up in Albany have decided, well, what are you going to use purple for? And that's the problem. There are people who decided, because I'm not used to it, or it's new to me, or this, that, and the other thing.
Mr. Bowden, please sum up.
That's another thing. Flexibility. There's some rules here that were flexible, and what it says to me is you're really not listening to what I have to say, and if it's important or not. And yes, it's important. And the days when a fixed 2-minute rule should be over, here and other places too. And you need to think constructively, is what Mr. Bowden's saying really interesting, or is he just sprouting off? I'm taking this time because it's connected to the purple light situation. People just follow the rules because they've always been there 100 years. The last meeting I brought up the train horns. We blow train horns because they're there 100 years. We blow the train horns at railroad crossings, but you don't know when at the end of Long Island which of the 10 railroad crossings it is, and it doesn't make sense anymore. And I'm trying to get people to think, this is a time of change. That fixed rule, the 2-minute rule, the color of the light rule, though you've made a good accommodation, you need to think flexibility. This is not the typewriter. This is the computer. This is the cell phone. Everybody's getting their information now on a cell phone. You need to be able to do that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Adam.
Hello, I'm Adam. Okay. Today I'm here to talk about the cooling system because, well, the times when I go on a bus, I'm usually either freezing or I'm burning hot. So I'm proposing that you could do like a heating, cooling system for those who are having problems, warming or cooling up. That's it.
Thank you very much. The final speaker is Gene Rushinoff.
Good morning, Chairman LeBeau and MTA board members and staff. Today, the city of media is reporting that the MTA is going to add tens of millions of dollars to its 2014 budget to enhance subway bus and commuter rail service. And I'm here to express the appreciation of the riding public and my colleagues in the transit advocacy community, like Transportation Alternatives, the Tri-State Campaign, and the other one. So, my hat is off to the MTA and to your new chairman, Tom Prendergast. With ridership at its highest level since 1950, the riding public wants and needs more service. We're very grateful to those board members who spoke out, and Board Member Capelli and Board Member Paley. We've yet to go through all the list of priorities, but I know one of them is a new select bus service route in 2014, and I think that's really a good use of the money. These restorations reverse many of the infamous June 2010 cuts, and I think that's great, and we urge that trend continue. As you all know too painfully well, the Strap Hangers campaign isn't always here with words of praise, so enjoy it while it lasts.
Thank you very much. That was the last speaker.
Thank you, public speakers. The minutes of the June 3rd meeting, which was now almost 2 months ago, are attached to the book. If any of you can remember any additions or corrections, are there any? You have one? Okay.
Yeah,
Andrew.
on page 1.2, under public speakers, Forest Avenue on Staten Island is spelled with 2 R's. It should be 1. That's the only correction.
All right. Subject to that correction, is there a motion to approve the minutes as corrected? All in favor? Any opposed? Do we have any changes in the work plan? I always look around because some mysterious voice always, oh, that's you today? Okay. No changes to the work plan. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Acting President, despite what his sign says, Carmen Bianco.
Thank you. Let's start with the operations report. Joe Leader.
The subway performance results for the 12-month period ending May 2013 are as follows. System-wide weekday weight assessment for the 12-month period increased 0.6% as compared to last year's average. Weekday OTP was slightly down in May of 2013 compared to May 2012. The 12-month average was down 1.6% compared to the same period the previous year. Both weekday and weekend 12-month weight assessment increased in the B division and declined in the A division. On Wednesday, May 29th, the mainline derailment occurred south of 125th Street on the number 1 line, causing over 500 delays, affecting service on the 2, 3, 4, and 5 lines. Various significant weekday incidents causing 100 or more delays per incident accounted for the sum 2,800 delays for May. It should be noted rainfall in New York City for May of 2013 nearly doubled the historic average for the month of May, creating operational challenges. An example of which a flooding incident that occurred at Brooklyn Bridge, where we incurred over more than 100 delays. In addition, there were major service diversions for track signal station improvement work every weekend in May on both the west and east sides, causing residual delays due to the adjacent flagging. We are currently taking a close look at how to schedule routine maintenance and inspection work on each line in the A division and analyzing in great detail the impact it has on overall service delivery. As a result, an initiative is being piloted on the Pelham line to assess the benefits of a new model for maintenance and testing of signal equipment, which the track department will piggyback. Though we are still studying the data, early results are promising. Potential for future expansion of these initiatives are being studied. In regards to MDBF, in May of 2013, MDBF was 206,211 miles, up 18% from 174,824 in May of 2012. The 12-month average was 165,445 miles, up 0.4% from 164,772 miles for the preceding 12 months. Moving on to key performance indicators. System-wide service KPI was 83%, up 0.5% from 82.5% in May of 2012. System-wide passenger environment survey KPI was 91%, up 0.1% from 90.9% in May of 2012. And the Staten Island Railway PES KPI was 92.3%, up 3.4% from 88.9%. As for our Fast Track program, Fast Track continues to enable the efficient completion of many maintenance tasks by allowing broad track access in designated service corridors. There were 10 Fast Track occasions in the second quarter of 2013. Major work completed included over 917,000 pounds of debris removed from our tracks, over 88,000 feet of third rail that was inspected, 14,900 drains were cleaned, and nearly 113,000 square feet of stations were painted. Fast Track continues to yield significant safety benefits and was recognized by APTA this June when New York City Transit was presented with the prestigious 2013 APTA Rail Safety Gold Award in recognition for the Fast Track program. For an update regarding Superstorm Sandy, we continue to see electrical failures as a result of the salt contamination during Sandy. For example, in May of 2013, we had 399 train delays due to signal problems in the Montague Street 2. Montague work is scheduled to commence August 3rd. On the G line, weekend outages commenced July 6th. The first 2 weekends resulted in 1,300 feet of track repair, 9,000 feet of cable replacement, and 90 feet of duct bank demolition. And this work is being performed by in-house forces. Outages in the Greenpoint Tube are also being used to improve stations. In the first 2 weekend closures, 40,000 square feet of ceilings and columns were scraped and painted at Greenpoint and the 21st Street stations. Before I conclude my report, I would like to commend the entire Subways team for their tremendous effort during the extreme heat wave that we just saw this past week. Although facing the incredible heat and humidity, our workers continued to work on capital projects, critical maintenance, and carried out the daily operation of our system. It should be noted that our aggressive maintenance plans have paid off as we have experienced success in cooling the communication rooms that power information and communication systems, as well as maintaining a high level of performance on our fleet. And that's my report.
Congratulations to you, Joe, on all this news, most of which is good. Congratulations on the APTA Safety Award.
Thank you.
And congratulations on moving 917,000 pounds of debris. That's amazing. Back to you, Carmen.
Yeah, Joe, I'd just like to echo those comments. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we're going to get into it at a latter point or not, but with the East River Tube closings, I know that there has been a plan put into effect to put some additional express buses online and some additional service on some of the alternate lines. I think the community in Brooklyn and some of the elected officials are anxious that we're going to be in touch with them on a regular basis to see whether modifications need to be made. And what plans do we have with respect to that?
Yeah, I believe in Judy McLean's here. Judy, can you speak to those issues?
Yes, we're planning to increase the X27 bus service by 25% during the Montague Tunnel closure, and we'll continue to work with folks to evaluate the service when it goes in.
Is there any kind of formal process that's been put up so that this communication takes place regularly?
Not that I know of, but we can look into that.
I can assure you that as we take on challenges like this, we're always meeting with the elected officials, and I understand there is a meeting with the Brooklyn elected officials on this very issue. So we'll stay close to it.
Yeah, because they have organized pretty tightly to watch this situation, so I would suggest that some kind of a regular status update on where things are at would do a lot to alleviate the concerns of our Brooklyn residents.
In regards to the Montague Street shutdown, the 14-month shutdown, we are preparing a contingency plan to safeguard the AM and the PM rush. So my forces are currently working on that.
To just join my fellow commissioner, when this was first announced, I asked if there would be additional 2, 3, 4, 5 service to compensate for the folks who are going to lose the Montague Tube, and we were told that this would be evaluated and that you would be flexible about doing that should it become necessary. Is that still status quo?
If there's a chance or a way that we could increase, we will. Those lines, though, are truly at capacity. So for us, it's really about having the right communications out there. It's to ensure that we have people on platform to spread out the loading on the trains, to do whatever we can while we have to do this critical work. And that's the plan. So if there is a chance that we would put extra service out there. But those lines that you're addressing on the IRT are already at capacity.
This is really an issue for those folks going to Lower Manhattan. If you're going to Midtown, obviously you can take a D or a B or an Express N and go to Midtown over the bridge. That being the case, perhaps you could look at the Rutgers, the Cranberry Street Tube, the A and the C. Yeah. Maybe they have some capacity. I believe.
Andrew, I can tell you, we've looked at every single one of them, and we're happy to give you, we're happy to talk to you about it. But we have looked exhaustively at every single one of those routes. So happy to brief you on it.
Carmen, I would congratulate you and your colleagues on doing a Herculean job in recovering from a series of disasters. That said, in May and then again in June on the A group, we have significant increases in delays or the weight assessment. And my question is, can we attribute that just to the issue of the moment, whether it be the rainfall or Hurricane Sandy, or is it something else that is causing this kind of situation? Because the degree is really substantial.
You want me?
Look at 3.3 and 3.4.
You want me to answer, Go?
No, okay. In terms of, I think that's a good question, Commissioner. I think all of what you've talked about in terms of the hurricane, the results of that, the critical maintenance that we have to do, the weather that we had in the month of May, I think all of that contributes to the work that we have to do out there, the trouble that we have to go out there and deal with on the lines, and the inspections that have to take place. So I think it's a combination of all of that. Again, what we're really trying to do is work on the weight assessment piece, because that's the piece that we know truly enhances or touches the customer's experience. If whether or not we get a train to its end terminal on time isn't quite as important to most of our customers as it is if we say we're going to deliver a train every 3 minutes or every 5 minutes, that we deliver a train every 3 to 5 minutes. So a lot of our energy, and you'll hear about it later on today, a lot of our energies are going into making sure that we put out a very even service, and that's what we're trying to do. And at the same time, trying to do that and take care of the critical maintenance.
Let me, if I may, tell you where I'm going with this. And you've heard me on this offline. It seems to me that at some point, the state of New York and the city of New York have got to join with us to figure out what it is we need to do or can do to update the facilities that you are given to run an efficient subway system that's even better than what you have today. Because if you were given the arms and the legs to do the job properly, I know you would do it. It seems to me at some point we've really got to put together a plan and say to the public, you want it, you're going to have to pay for it.
Well, that's certainly true. Let me just add one more comment, though, to my response to you. All of what we're talking about in the month of May, including weight assessment, please consider that in some of the highest record ridership that we've ever experienced in many, many years. So the challenges are there. The team that's out there from Subways, they're working hard to try to make sure that this experience, trying to make sure we're moving the trains, that we're keeping an eye on the weight assessment, the regularity of the service, and we're going to continue to do that.
All right, Mr. Acting President, are we ready to move on to our next
I think we're ready for
phase, which is buses?
And Steve Vidal sitting in for Darrell Irick. Steve's the Vice President of Transportation.
Good morning. Today I'll cover the performance highlights for both fixed route bus and paratransit operations for the month of May 2013 and the past 12 months through May. I'll start with fleet reliability. For the month of May, the combined bus MBDF was 4,944 miles, or 12.4% greater when compared to May 2012. When looking at a performance over a rolling 12-month period through May, combined MDBF was 5,026 miles, or an improvement of almost 34% when compared to the prior 12-month period. We're continuing our efforts to sustain maintenance reliability improvements within existing resource levels, particularly as we address the heat-related challenges of the summer months. Next, I'll talk about our service delivery indicators for the month of May.
You know, we expect you to improve MDBF 34% every month from now on. You know that?
That's our goal. I'll talk about our service delivery indicators for the month of May. The percent of completed trips was 99.3%, which is up 0.5%. Scheduled pullouts for AM and PM peaks were at 99.7% or better, both higher than May 2012 levels. When looking at a performance over a rolling 12-month period, the percent of completed trips was 99.2%, an improvement of 0.8%. AM pullouts were at 99.6% and PM pullouts were at 99.8%, both higher than prior 12-month period. Regarding paratransit performance, in May of 2013, there was a decrease of 3.3% in the total number of accessor ride requests for service when compared to May of 2012. For the full 12-month period, requests for service fell by 1.8% over the previous 12 months. Accessor ride passenger no-show in both May 2013 was when compared to May of 2012 and over the past 12 months has been flat. Before I conclude my report, I just want to also echo what Joe was saying. Kudos out to the workforce. Last week was an overwhelmingly challenging week, and really happy to say that we were able to put out our service at well over 99% of our trips were made last week despite the conditions we were under. So my congratulations to everybody and my gratitude as well. That completes the bus operations report.
I have two questions, if I may. On page 3.30, if I read that correctly, the number of collisions causing injuries is up over last year. Have you come to any conclusion at all as to why that has occurred?
Sorry. Which chart are you looking at?
I'm looking at 3.30, monthly results, May 2013, 52.90.
Gotcha. Sure.
Okay, I can answer that. They did do an analysis of the data, and they did find that operators with 1 to 3 year experience has experienced the highest increase in the rate. So they're targeting that group of operators for their accident reduction program training.
So you're providing additional training
Yes.
for them. That's terrific.
Yes.
The second question is on accessoride. I doubt that there's anybody in this room that hasn't seen one of those lumbering 7-passenger minibuses that may carry 2 people, usually carries only the driver. What are we doing to phase that huge expense out?
Is Tom Charles here?
Replacing them with cars or something else?
Tom Charles is here to answer that question.
Yeah. We do have a legacy of having, at one point, 100% of the fleet as accessible, those large vans. We have, in the course of the year, started to change the mix to identify that we have better information, because the initial reason for having all those accessible was not having the right information and you couldn't send the wrong vehicle. Now that we have better information, better technology, we've changed the fleet. Right now we're at a mix of about 40% sedans. We are looking at future accessible vehicles. Thanks to the board, we're able to test a vehicle called the MV1, which is much smaller footprint, which will also help in a number of ways with our driving and GPS technology. So we are acknowledging the fact that we don't need to have these large vehicles and are looking for a change in the fleet mix. I think we discussed this before. We are bound by certain parameters of the ADA regulations. The experience the customer has on that vehicle has to be comparable to what they would have on a fixed route bus or subway. We have met with the community to come up with times per miles. So what you're seeing really is a pickup drop-off. We don't have the ability to maximize a full capacity of 7 seats for all of our trips. We need to plan each trip individually. They have their own clock, so to speak, their distance, and that's why you see, in most cases, the vehicle not filled to capacity.
Let me make a point, which I know you're aware of, because I know you're trying to do something about it. As of March of this year, we instituted a series of toll increases, fare increases, and the like, for the purpose of raising $450 million. We, MTA, now has a deficit of $300 million just going for paratransit. And in my view, that is something that really we have to look at, because if we are to avoid or minimize future increases, that's an area we've got to look at without in any way undermining the access that people who have disabilities are entitled to receive. But we ought to do those things that we can to cut that deficit down. Now, having said that, when you run a 7-passenger lumbering van, and you have one, the driver, and maybe one other passenger in there, we've got to do what we can to save money, whether it be for fuel or whatever else. They are a traffic problem and the like. Fortunately, the mayor has taken steps to provide the taxis in the future, in some instances, will have this accessibility. It just seems to me we need to give this a very high priority if we are to try and do what we can to minimize or avoid fare increases in the future, and to provide service at the same time. And that's all I'm trying to get across to you.
Okay, check mark. Page is next. Are we getting anywhere in talking to the TLC in terms of the system that I believe they've implemented to access handicapped cabs?
Yes, we work jointly with the 311 accessible dispatch system. We have customers who are on our prepaid debit card who make use of that 311 system for their trips. And as the TLC expands its accessible vehicles, we anticipate to go beyond Manhattan with the yellow cabs into the outer boroughs.
Thank you.
So I have one question, but beforehand, I do want to at least make a comment on what Commissioner Merler had said. And I will always keep pushing, and as Tom knows, to do more and more. We had done a tremendous amount of work in reducing the amount of expenses by looking at new ways, and Mark and Tom just talked about it, about introducing the yellow cabs, the debit card. So there's been a lot of stuff, and I think more and more is better. One question I had for you, Tom. The MV1, that's the VPG car? So I remember we had, I think it was VPG, where they donated or they gave us the first 50. I forget what it was. No, but we're testing them out.
Yes.
I heard last month that VPG went bankrupt and they closed shop. What are we doing about it? Are we now stuck with these vehicles? How much did we pay for these vehicles, or am I completely mistaken?
No, VPG had as one of its funding streams a Department of Energy loan for alternate fuel vehicles, of which we have some CNG models. The manufacturer, American General, are in discussions to take over that operation, and they've been communicating with us that they anticipate to resume production. They have quite a book of orders to fill. So at this moment, we're not exposed. We have about 100 in the fleet of our 2,000 vehicles. We are owed about 114, but we pay them when we receive them, not up front, so we're not exposed to that. And I still have some confidence that the vehicle is an ideal solution for our system.
Cheryl, are we safe?
Okay. Yes. Safety results for subways were as follows. In the month of April, the accident rate per million customers increased by 3.3% when compared to April 2012. The subway customer accident rate increased by 4.7% over the previous 12-month period. There were 76 confirmed fires for the month of May, an increase of 52% from May 2012. However, over the last 12 months, fires decreased by 9%. 100% of all fires were categorized as being low or average in severity for the month of May. The employee lost time accident rate increased by 19.2% for the Department of Subways during the month of May 2013 as compared to May 2012, but decreased by 2.4% for the rolling 12-month period. Safety results for NYCT bus and MTA bus through May 2013 were as follows. The combined 12-month rate for bus collisions per million miles traveled increased by 7.6% through May 2013. Bus collision injuries per million miles, however, decreased by 14.2% for the same period. The combined 12-month rate for bus customer accidents per million customers decreased by 13.9% through May 2013. Bus customer accident injuries per million customers also decreased by 13.1% for the same period. The employee lost time accident rate decreased by 2.9% for NYCT bus and by 18.8% for MTA bus for the month of May 2013 compared to May 2012. The rolling 12-month rate was down 10.4% for NYCT bus and 22.1% for MTA bus, respectively. The overall NYCT employee lost time accident rate increased by 7.8% for the month of May 2013 versus May 2012. However, the rolling 12-month rate was down 6% from the previous year.
Questions for Cheryl? If not, we will turn to Chief Joseph Fox. Welcome, Joe.
Good morning, all. Good morning, Mark. Year-to-date, total major felony crime is down 13% within the transit system compared to the same period last year. These 191 fewer incidents, 1,277 compared to 1,468 last year, include a 29.5% year-to-date decline in robberies and a 5.4% decline in grand larcenies. For the month of June, total major felonies were reduced 10%, or 24 incidents, 215 compared to 239. Robberies were down 23.7%, or 18 incidents, and grand larcenies decreased by 1.6%. Year-to-date, we have averaged 7.2 major crimes, felony crimes per day. The number of major felonies is down from the 7.7 per day that occurred during the same period in 2012. Of the 215 major felonies for June, 39% were committed in Manhattan, 13.5% in Queens, 33.5% in Brooklyn, and 14% in the Bronx, which is consistent with our general trends. I often speak of our use of technology in helping to prevent crime and assist in our investigations. One tool that has proven useful is our domain awareness system for closed-circuit television cameras. This system employs New York City Transit and NYPD cameras that are routed to a computer database where they can be monitored in real time by our officers. This includes the ability to immediately recall video of incidents as they take place and to retrieve older footage for ongoing investigations. Currently, we have access to these high-resolution cameras at key subway stations. Examples of stations with this video capability include 42nd Street, Times Square, 34th Street, Penn Station, Grand Central Station, Chambers Street, and Rockefeller Center. These video feeds are monitored round the clock by officers at our Transit Manhattan Task Force. as well as at the headquarters of our Lower Manhattan Security Initiative. This system was created by working in close partnership with the New York City Transit to merge camera capabilities and coverage. I'm happy to report that this program continues to expand. An additional terminal has recently been added to Transit District 4, allowing officers at Union Square to access and monitor all stations that have video feeds. Comprehensive video coverage at additional stations, such as 34th Street and Herald Square and Fulton Street, is forthcoming. The system is useful in many respects. For example, an officer responding to a report of an assault at Grand Central Station can communicate directly with an officer monitoring the many cameras at that same station. Within seconds, video can be recalled confirming the incident, providing descriptions of perpetrators, and showing where they fled. In fact, officers trained in the use of this technology can review several synchronized camera feeds at once, thereby tracking a perpetrator's direction of flight throughout the covered portions of the system. Officers assigned to monitor the cameras regularly use this system proactively as well. The ability to make discrete observations in real time is an invaluable tool. On June 23rd of this year, one such example occurred when our officers observed a grand larceny as it occurred at the 42nd Street and 8th Avenue station. In response to a radio call of a male in need of medical assistance, Sergeant Maria Franco and Officer Russell Murphy of Transit Manhattan Task Force focused a domain awareness system cameras on the ill passenger. While he was in a semi-conscious state on the platform bench, the officers observed another male sit next to him and make repeated attempts to remove items from his pockets. The officers monitoring the camera relayed this information to members of their team in the field. Officers Andres Munoz and Mark Manuel responded and immediately apprehended the perpetrator, Jay Von Fain. Fain, who has one prior arrest, was found to be in possession of a stolen credit card at the time of his arrest and charged with attempted grand larceny and criminal possession of stolen property. We have had many similar successes with camera technology. We have tracked each use of the camera system from its inception. Since coming online September 2010, there have been 561 arrests made, 200 summonses issued, and more than 630 independent investigations conducted, all as a direct result of the use of these cameras. It is clear that the system has been a great benefit, and we look forward to continued partnership to expand our use of this technology. Thank you, Mr. Tom Prendergast, Carmen Bianco, Joe Leder, and the members of the board. And any questions or suggestions, please share.
Chief, first my congratulations on getting the rate of incidents down. My question to you is this: is anyone other than a law enforcement official given access to the videos without a warrant or court order?
No, there's Manhattan MTA Security has access to the cameras, but that's it.
No one other than law enforcement and MTA Security is given access without either a warrant or a court order. That's right on target.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Is the decline in the crime statistics of between 10 and 29% due entirely to Ray Kelly, or do you in your Transit Bureau take some... Oh, never mind. You don't have to answer that. Anybody else?
Thank you, Mark.
Go ahead, Andrew.
I think the chief's explanation about how valuable the camera technology is another reason that when the help points, the oncoming group of new help points are ordered, we should take up the possibility of equipping them with cameras, having eyes and ears along platforms, especially where booth agents have been removed. I think would go a long way towards keeping crime down. I know it's a dollar issue, and I know that they're not cheap, but I think it's, if anything cries out for, doing it because the public safety is at hand here, I think it's these cameras.
No, we hear you, and all of the help points that will be installed will be camera ready. And part of the challenge, though, is not whether we want to do it or not. It's how do you capture that much video, and as the system is built out in terms of the infrastructure that's necessary to have all that video come in, that certainly will be something we.
I guess George Orwell was right, just a little premature.
Alan Capelli.
Just 2 points. One, in combination with what Andrew just said, I recently had the opportunity to observe the Paris system and how extensive their camera operation was in terms of live feed as well as recorded data. They actually even record on the trains themselves as a tool for law enforcement to be able to follow up, and was very favorably impressed with their operations, and I'm glad to see that, you know, we're continuing to move down in that direction and would be supportive of those efforts. On an initiative that we funded last year with respect to fare beating, in the last series of service investments, we placed money in for placing people on buses, and I understand that we've had some pretty good success. I've seen reported in the local paper in Staten Island a tremendous number of summonses and a significant number of arrests that have taken place. Has that been going on citywide, and can we expect more of that to continue?
Yes, at Commissioner Kelly's direction, there's been more uniform officers who are not assigned to transit, assigned to Patrol Service Bureau commands on the buses, to taking enforcement action on the buses and riding the buses.
We've also, in addition to what the chief just mentioned, internally through the Eagle team, the Eagle team has been built out. That team's actively engaged in all the boroughs, targeting buses. The number of summonses are up significantly. I don't have the exact numbers. We could get them for you, but I think Vinny DiMarino's in the room here. Go ahead, Vinny. Do you have specifics on that?
Since the Eagle team's inception, which was in June of '08, to combat fare evasion on select bus service, to make sure that the behavior modification, people knew this wasn't a free service, we have written over 65,000 $100 Transit Adjudication Bureau summonses. Since the board funded us to double the size of the Eagle team in March to do fare evasion citywide, we've written a little less than 4,000 summonses. We've been hitting Staten Island hard. What we do is work very closely with the NYPD. We work with ops planning, with buses, with subways, and there are a myriad of issues that we put into play when we decide where to deploy. Everything that we learned from the NYPD with regards to ComStat, intelligence-based deployment, we try to utilize. So we don't just deploy with this fare evasion. We deploy where there are bus operator assaults, where there are increases in iPhone robberies, where bus drivers tell us there are problems, and we work very closely with the NYPD to do a force multiplier so that when I put 20 people out there and the NYPD puts 20 people out there, the bad guys think there are 100 people out there. And what we want at the end of the day is not to write summonses. We want people to always look over their shoulder and say, you know what, I better pay my fare. I better not assault the bus driver. I better not steal someone's iPhone because one of these men and women might be on this bus. And if that's, that's the panacea, that's the goal, is to get fare evasion down and crime down, not necessarily the summons number up.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of good feedback from people as to this effort, both passengers as well as our bus drivers, who are very pleased to have this support taking place. I'm also hearing that what happens is within seconds of people getting grabbed, everybody's on their cell phone making phone calls around. So the word of mouth about this initiative is tenfold from, or even more than that, as we do it. So keep it up.
I think as this we build this out and we continue to get more experience with the Eagle team, we should probably have a report for you later on this year with some of the details, if that's...
All right, Chuck.
Quick question. At one point, were you not going to install cameras in connection with the assaults on drivers and the like? Cameras inside the buses?
Yes, we currently have cameras inside of many of our buses, and all of our purchases will include either camera-equipped buses or buses already coming with cameras. So is Henry here? Sullivan? What's the number of buses with cameras currently?
Contract for 1,162, I believe, is the number.
So how many are currently on buses, though?
It's over 1,300 now. will be at $15.76 by the end of the year, which includes an option for $11.50 plus $4.26 we had before that.
That too ought to get out so that people know that you can't assault the drivers or cause mayhem.
All right. Jeff?
Just to add a point, I know this weekend, I think it was Chicago bus system, I thought I saw something on the news so people see it. It was a bus camera, and then the bus driver decided to take things in his own hands and actually try to stop the perpetrators, and you can see the real danger that the driver puts himself into, but the bus cameras really help that, and everyone can see that.
Andrew?
This might be for Vinny or the chief, but do you have a sense of those 65,000 summonses, how many were for people going in the bus via the back door or just not paying on an SBS?
We found that there are people who were stunned to see us that openly made remarks, I haven't paid in years. But what's the good side is that we also have a lot of members of the public, like the commissioner said, who are saying, thank God you're here because it's not fair. My 80-year-old mother pays and watches 15 people get on without paying. So I think, and again, the bus drivers feel very safe. So I think the positive is way outweighing any negative. But as far as our bus operator assaults, which we're trying to track very closely with the NYPD, many of them are as a result of fare evasion. The bus operator saying, hey, you have to pay your fare. Or, hey, what are you guys doing? And, close the back door. I got to get the bus going. What are you all doing? So, I always talk about the broken windows theory. By us going after fare evasion, just like the police do, by going after the little things, I think all of the big things also get corrected, and I think that we're going to see a good move.
So is it a fair statement that most of these summonses were for people getting on a regular non-SBS bus and just not paying their fare versus people getting on an SBS bus and not paying their fare?
No, I don't want to say. I don't have the exact statistics, but we only started doing regular bus service in March. So the majority of the summonses that my people have written were for select bus service.
Let me do this. We've had the Eagle team out with the SBS. They're now on other routes, very targeted, where we utilize them. We'll get some more experience with this, and we'll come back to you later on in the year with a report on it.
All right, folks. For those of you who think finance is important and ridership, back to you, Carmen.
Thank you. Later on on Wednesday, the full board will be briefed on the July financial plan. That won't be covered in our meeting today, but a little later on this morning, we will review with you some of the initiatives or investments that we will be proposing or that we have proposed here at New York City Transit. So that'll happen a little bit later in our meeting today. But let me go on to the finances. Preliminary May 2013 New York City Transit fare box revenue was $352.9 million. That's $1.2 million or 0.3% above budget. Year-to-date revenue was $600,000, less than 0.1% above budget. The average non-student fare in May 2013 was $1.78. In constant 1996 dollars, the May average fare fell from $1.38 in 96 to $1.15 in 2013.
$1.15. Wow. Okay.
Moving on, preliminary May 2013 operating expenses before depreciation and OPEB were below budget by $22.4 million or 4.2%. Labor expenses underran by $11 million or 2.8% due mainly to lower health and welfare, OPEB current expenses due to lower rates, and partly offset by higher overtime expenses caused mainly by continued Sandy-related work and additional maintenance requirements. Non-labor expenses were below budget by $11.4 million, 8.1%, mostly attributable to paratransit service contracts and energy underruns, partly offset by higher professional service contract expenses, including the timing of expenses. Year-to-date operating expenses were favorable to budget by $59.9 million or 2.3%, due essentially to the same factors affecting the month's results. Preliminary ridership in May 2013, New York City Transit ridership totaled 211.5 million, 0.1% below budget. In May of 2013, average weekday ridership results compared to May 2012 were as follows. Subway ridership was at 5.7 million, an increase of 1.8%, and the highest of any May and the second highest of any month in over 45 years.
Highest in any May, any
Anytime?
Yes.
Okay, folks.
And I mean, that goes to the question we talked about earlier when we were looking at the operating report. It's, you know, given all that we have to do on the lines to keep them reliable, we're still dealing with record levels of ridership. New York City Transit local bus ridership was 2.2 million, a decrease of 0.8%. New York City Transit Express bus ridership was 43,000. That's a decrease of 2.7%. And paratransit ridership was 30,000, a decrease of 5.4%. Fare box revenue was $2 million. That's 0.6% above budget. Operating expenses were $15.7 million, 3.1% above budget. Initial indications are that this overrun was due mainly to the unfavorable timing of health and welfare-related accrual adjustments and some non-labor expenses. The final June results will be reported along with July results in September, and we will compare to the mid-year forecasts. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Tom Del Sorbo, who will provide the details for MTA Bus.
Good morning. Year-to-date through May 2013, fare box revenues for MTA Bus were $80.6 million, which is $2 million or 2.6% better than budget. The average non-student fare was $1.78 in May, up 7.4% from May 2012. Year-to-date May 2013 MTA Bus non-reimbursable accrued expenses were favorable by $6.5 million or 2.7%. Performance against budget represents favorable non-labor expenses of $10.6 million under budget, partially offset by unfavorable labor expenses of $4.1 million. The favorable non-labor expense underrun was primarily due to lower than budgeted spending and favorable timing of payments for insurance, maintenance contracts, fuel, and professional service contracts. Labor expenses were unfavorable due to payroll and overtime costs related to Superstorm Sandy. Sandy-related costs resulted from the operation of a high volume of bus shuttles performed by both MTA Bus and New York City Transit through the end of May until the restoration of A-train service back to the Rockaways. Moving on to preliminary ridership for May. Year-to-date May 2013, MTA Bus ridership totaled 52.8 million, which is 2.4 million or 4.7% higher than budget. For the month of May, average weekday local bus ridership was 398,000, an increase of 3.8% from May 2012. Average weekday express bus ridership was 34,000, a decrease of 4.2% from May 2012. Average weekend local bus ridership was 376,000, a slight decrease of 0.5% from May 2012. And May 2013 total ridership levels were 4.9% above budget levels. That's it for the MTA Bus finance and ridership reports.
Okay, on to capital programs. Wherefore art thou, Fred?
There I am.
There you are.
Okay, good morning. Looking at the capital program results, commitments during the month of May 2013 totaled $177 million, including station renewal work at Buer Avenue, Middletown Road, Zurich Avenue, and Castle Hill Avenue stations, and also work to address deficient components at the Pelham Bay Park station on the number 6 Pelham line in the Bronx. Also for track and mainline switch reconstruction projects at various locations across the boroughs, and rehabilitation of ventilators. That includes the structural vent bays, drainage, and the actual grading up in the street at 4 locations in Queens, Brooklyn, and Manhattan. On the completion side for a month, we total about $65 million, including modernization of the Greeley Avenue substation. That's at 31st and 6th Avenue on the 6th Avenue line in Manhattan. Rehab of the 10th Street substation, that's powered to the Culver line in Brooklyn. And replacement of non-revenue rubber tire support vehicles was completed. And lastly, installation of exhaust fans and air conditioners, which is a continuation of our work in the communication rooms. 6 locations were completed. That completes my report.
Any questions? Are we ready for procurements? Steve?
Good morning. The procurement package, which presents New York City Transit, MTA Bus, and MTACC procurements, includes 24 actions totaling $397.4 million in expenditures. I would like to highlight 2 procurements included in this month's agenda. The first item consists of 2 awards for broker car service resulting from a competitively negotiated request for proposal. Under these contracts, Medical Transportation Management Incorporated, MTM, will receive an award in the amount of $106.2 million, representing 60% of the total award amount, and Corporate Transportation Group, CTG, will receive an award in the amount of $72.8 million, representing 40% of the total award amount. The aggregate total for both broker car service contracts will be $179 million. The broker program utilizes a contractor to schedule and dispatch prearranged trips for Paratransit's ambulatory passengers through a non-dedicated subcontractor network of livery and black car service providers. The use of a non-dedicated service provides a cost benefit to New York City Transit in that Paratransit does not bear the direct responsibility for maintenance of these vehicles and other operating costs, as is the case with dedicated primary carrier service. The award of these contracts is a strategic part of the continuing efforts to reduce Paratransit's overall costs, specifically in this case as an alternative to the more costly primary carrier trips. The weighted average price per broker trip of $29.97 under these new contract awards will be on average 43% lower than the average price of $53 for primary carrier trips. The pricing under the new contracts also compares favorably to the existing broker's car service contract and will provide approximately $19.2 million in savings over the 3-year base contract term. I'd also like to note that while not a certified WBE in New York State, MTM is a certified woman-owned business in Missouri. The second item is the award of a competitively negotiated contract for the purchase of 300 diesel express buses from Prevost Car US, Inc., in the amount of $164.8 million. Through New York City Transit's continued outreach efforts and as an outgrowth of its pilot bus program, New York City Transit was able to successfully qualify an additional express bus manufacturer and for the first time develop competition for its express bus procurements. The competitive negotiation process resulted in Prevost reducing its initial price by $8.9 million. In addition, Prevost's best and final offer is $5.4 million lower than the best and final offer price from its competitor, Motor Coach Industries, Inc. I'd like to point out that Prevost has committed to meeting a New York State content of 21.5%. In addition to sourcing materials and services from New York State companies, Prevost will expand an existing facility in Plattsburgh to perform a large portion of the manufacture of these buses, resulting in the creation of new jobs in New York State. This Plattsburgh facility was built by Prevost's sister company, Novabus, that is currently engaged in the manufacture of 40-foot and 60-foot low-floor transit buses at that location. I ask for your approval of all actions in the agenda.
Questions? Jeff?
On the accessorized broker program, whatever happened to the contracts we had? I mean, the program's been around for a year or two, right?
Yes, the pilot program is in place actually for the broker program.
Yeah.
That's been doing very well, very successful. This is a follow-on. If you recall, that contract was put in place as really a test and a pilot program to sort of see whether or not that broker program would work.
Right.
In this particular instance, we actually got lower prices than was under that program.
So do the companies that are currently provided the service bid?
Yes.
And they were just way out of whack?
No, CTG is actually the incumbent, and they're winning 40% of this.
Okay.
They didn't win the 60% portion.
CTG was the company that we had?
They were the incumbent, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Chuck?
I'd like to call your attention to pages 5.12, 5.13, and I'll give you the other one in a minute. It's number 7. Focus on the Gieske and DeVrient America. I'm going to assume they're doing an absolutely superb job, all right? They got a sole source contract in 2007. That has been extended a couple of times pursuant to options, and now we propose to give them 4 more years. So they've had effectively a monopoly for a period of 10 years if we adopt this. Now, I don't mean to say that they're not doing a terrific job, and I don't mean to say that you shouldn't keep people if they're doing a good job. But I do mean to say that we have 3 similar kinds of proposals here involving millions of dollars where there's no competition. And it's been going on for years and years. It's like an annuity. It seems to me going forward, that ought to stop. And that's all I'm asking, is that in the future, if you have a contract that's been out there for more than 5 years, you ought to bid it. Or you ought to do an RFP, or you ought to do something to give competition a chance.
In the G&D circumstance, they are the only company that can repair and maintain their systems.
But there are other people who have systems that can be used instead that may be as good or better.
If we were to go out, we would competitively procure new systems. But what this does, this maintains the existing system so that we can get an elongated life out of it, as opposed to buying new. We saved a lot of money by continuing to maintain the existing systems.
But the point is we ought to look at whether the savings we effect provide efficiencies equal to the task and provide us an opportunity for competition. That's all I'm trying to focus on. And I keep hammering away at it, and I'm going to continue to do it for at least the next 3 years.
And if I may just add, you've been quite successful. I mean, just the discussion we just had before about Prevost bus, you know, it was the first time we got competition for over-the-road buses.
I absolutely agree.
And so I think that Steve and his team have done a very good job. There will always be some circumstances where we have to come to the board with a sole source, but by and large, we always work on improving competition.
Bob, I do not fault you at all. All I'm saying is when you've got somebody who's got, in this case, 10 years free ride, another one has an 11-year term, we ought to take a look at it again.
Okay. Thank you.
I understand that we have decided to purchase diesel buses again because the hybrids were getting costly and the diesels work just as they're as clean as the hybrids were, and they work better in the non-Manhattan boroughs. However, on today's procurements, you have a diesel particulate filter item of almost $4 million. So are the hybrids still not as good a deal when you have to put these special particulate filters on the diesel buses?
The particulate filters helps us obviously attain the emissions profile that we seek on these. The extent to which the engines that we buy on these buses, they are comparable to any of the other products that are out there, both CNG as well as the hybrids.
In terms of longevity? Or?
Well, actually, in longevity, the diesels are probably a more robust product for our duty cycle. But on top of that, from an emissions profile, they're there. I mean, they weren't years ago, but they certainly are now.
Even without the particulate filters, or with
No, the particulate filter is part of the exhaust stream treatment. So you have to have them, and that's why that contract's there. It's one of the maintenance issues that we need to contend with.
So once that contract is in place, how do they compare in price to the hybrids?
I'll let Henry answer that, but I will tell you that they are considerably less expensive all in when you look at the full life cycle costing model.
And Andrew, you'll hear, for those members that are going to CPOC today, you'll hear a presentation that'll get more into this issue.
Steve, aren't you impressed by how knowledgeable the board is about some of these details? Let me ask you this one, though. Does Prevost acquire its articulated structural steel in China or in this country?
It's not in China.
Oh, okay. Anybody else? All right. What's next? Now, you've all heard about the procurements which are in the book. Is there any more questions? Is there a motion to approve the procurements? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Action items.
Action item. Seeking board approval on two staff summaries. The first is a request to amend the New York City Transit portion of the 2010 through 14 capital program to allow for the addition of 3 new projects and to increase the scope of 2 existing projects. The new capital projects include, first, the replacement of ATSA and CBTC status boards at the Rail Control Center, And second, the replacement of outdated ATSA computer hardware and operating systems. And third, installation of help point intercom devices at 16 additional stations. The first planned scope change is the station component program. We will advance component repair work at 2 stations on the Crosstown line and 5 stations on the Broadway line. Our intent is to take advantage of the planned service shutdowns associated with Sandy-related repair work in the Greenpoint and Montague tubes to perform this high-priority station work in a more cost-effective and efficient manner with less disruption to New York City Transit customers. The final proposed scope change is to increase the approved purchase of 285 express buses by 15 to a total of 300 buses. As authorized by the board in September of 2012, the contract was to include 285 base buses and 15 option buses. But our latest assessment of express bus needs warrants moving the option buses into the base contract. The total cost of these modifications is $48 million. Funding for these buses is covered within the existing project budget, and the balance is covered through capital program contingencies. The second and final staff summary for approval is the request is for the renewal of retainer agreements with the Transit Adjudication Bureau's current senior hearing officers.
Armin? Would the station scope, the component scope change be all completed by the end of the Montague tube shutdown and the Greenpoint tube shutdown?
Yeah, that's our hope. I mean, our hope is that we really take advantage of, the stations being out.
Yeah.
Gives us a great opportunity to go in, and that's why we're advancing it. It makes perfect sense. We could do it with, without interruption, without, tremendous upside in terms of efficiency and productivity.
Jeff?
I've always been a big fan of the station component program. I'm glad we've done and continue to do more of it. The $48 million in program savings in the capital plan, has that been outlined? Is the CPOC committee looking at that? I mean, where does that come from?
I think, it's contingency that wasn't used, and partly because of favorable bids, but I don't know whether it goes to CPOC. I imagine that the capital program budget does get reviewed at CPOC.
Okay, you've heard about the capital project modification and the retainer renewals for the hearing officers. Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Service changes. Who's doing that?
Judy McLean.
Oh, Judy, okay.
Good morning. In Section 7 of the agenda this month, we have 3 staff summaries for the committee, all of which are for board information. The first action is the implementation of the B44 Select Bus Service on Nostrand and Rogers Avenue in Brooklyn. This new service will replace existing B44 Limited service. Implementation of SBS service will increase annual operating costs by $3.8 million. With the projected increases in speed and reliability resulting from the introduction of this new service, ridership, which is currently stagnant on the B44, is expected to increase. The B44 SBS is an FTA-funded new start, and construction is currently underway along the corridor. Implementation is planned for late fall of this year. Our second action is a modification to the route path of the eastbound B57 and southbound B61 to improve reliability and reduce travel time for those on those routes. We recently learned that State DOT is going to be doing some reconstruction work on the Gowanus Expressway, and that may delay City DOT's ability to make Mill Street a through street. As soon as they're able to do that, we will implement this service. Our third and final staff summary is for bus schedule changes on 7 routes. These are proposed for implementation in January of 2014. Note that these represent routine changes in response to changes in ridership and associated revised running times that more closely match changes in operating conditions.
Questions on the service changes? Don't ask her if she's going to replace the Gowanus Expressway.
Ask her.
Okay.
A couple of things on various items, Judy. First of all, do you have an estimate, because it isn't on the staff summary, as to how much faster you think the B44 Select will be than the old limited bus?
In other quarters, we've been able to speed up service by about 20%, so we're hoping to get that kind of change here.
Okay. Also, it says it will provide the customers the opportunity to transfer to, and it lists subways, and it says the 3 at St. John's Place Station. We don't have a St. John's Place Station.
Thank you for pointing that out.
And moving along.
Maybe she's putting one in, Nancy.
Moving along. On the so-called seasonal bus adjustments, which I usually sound off on, I am really mortified to see a reduction in the M42. We have removed the M104 from 42nd Street. We've told people if you want to go from lots of places or go across 42nd, you have to change to the M42. It is now the sole bus going across 42nd, and there's a proposal here to cut it 8.8%, which tells me that by removing the 104 and giving people the ability to change between a 104 and a 42, we've actually cut bus usage on 42nd Street. If you think this cut is justified by the boarding numbers now.
What happened was when we did cut back the M104, we proactively increased M42 service, and we overestimated how much was needed, and now we're adjusting to what actual ridership is.
So it's not a vendetta against 42nd Street bus users?
No, Andrew.
Okay.
Chuck.
Have any or all of these proposals concerning new bus service or reductions been submitted prior to today to either the community boards involved or to the borough presidents of the respective boroughs for their comments?
A letter is going out today, but we will be the changes. Many of them are going to be subject to a public hearing, so there will be opportunity when we come back with these public hearings for the public to have input.
I went through this dance last year, and I made the point, and I thought the chair and others agreed. You've had time to get this to the community boards, which are the representatives of the residents of the communities, to hear their views on them before bringing it here. You certainly have had time to call it to the attention of the borough president. It seems to me that if you don't do it in the future, I will oppose each and every one of them.
Commissioner Merdler, I'd like Rob Marino to just comment on this.
We're talking about the B44 and the bus revisions, correct?
I'm referring to all three of these.
Yes, we sent letters out dated July 11th and July 12th to the affected elected officials and community boards.
You sent them to community boards when?
July 11th and July 12th.
Okay, that's good. At least they've had 10 days' notice. That was my point. If you give them notice and you give the community boards and the borough presidents of each of the boroughs an opportunity, as well as the city council people, that's all I ask.
And that was done last week.
Just as a point of clarification, we don't vote on these action items, is that right? So this is for informational purposes. So this is more of a start of a process rather than the end of a process. When does this go into effect?
These go in different times. Some go in the fall, some go in January. But they're judged to be minor service changes, so they just come to the board as informational items.
But it's not the start of the process, Jeff. It's the end of the process, basically.
If the public hearings come out that say there's a big problem or a big concern, as others have suggested, what happens in that case?
I was referring to, I'm making a presentation at the end of this meeting.
Okay.
And those service investments, many of them will be subject to a public hearing.
That part I understand. Okay.
Yeah, and I just want to get back to Commissioner Merdler. We have been doing exactly what the board has asked in terms of higher levels of communication with the community boards and the elected officials. And I can assure you that that will continue to be the case.
Thank you very much. I know I can rely on you.
As a former community board chairman, including whose territory includes where this building is, I disqualify myself in this subject. Anybody else? We ready for special projects? Carmen?
Okay. Moving on to special reports. This month we have two in your books. There's a status report on the MetroCard program that's included. And then we also want to make a presentation on service and service quality investments. Earlier this morning, our chairman, Tom Prendergast, met with the press to talk about our continuing efforts to listen to our customers, but also at the same time to live within our certain cost constraints and to reduce costs. Later on Wednesday, the board will be given the benefit of a full briefing on the mid-year financial plan, the July plan. But today, what I'd like to do, since we're meeting as a team, is to go over proposed investments both in service and in service quality with members of the committee. And I'd like to start with a little background, if you will. Go to slide 1, please. In the period since service cuts in 2010, New York City Transit made a number of investments to add service. These have included restoring some of what had been cut previously, as well as adding new services to serve growing markets and new destinations. We've also added service through the regular application of our service guidelines and through the expansion of select bus service. In 2014, we'll add more service when the number 7 line extension opens to 34th Street, Hudson Yards. And now, in conjunction with the preliminary financial plan that we presented to the board on Wednesday, we're proposing several additional service increases, as well as a number of initiatives to improve subway service quality. What I'd like to do is run through these. I'm going to ask Judy McLean if she would take us through the actual service, investments we plan to make, and then we'll go to Joe Leader, who will take us through the service quality issues. Yes, sir. We can provide a handout.
I would like one, please.
Okay.
Me too.
Do we have handouts here, Judy? Why don't we go through the presentation? We'll make sure we have one to you by email. I thought there were presentations actually here, a number of copies. We may not have had enough to go around.
I would just point out the Long Island Railroad got one in advance of the meeting, at the beginning of the meeting.
Okay, we'll go through the presentation, and I'll make sure you have one before we leave here.
Okay. In terms of looking at these service investments, the process for selecting which services were proposed is that we looked at the evaluation of the 2010 service reductions, and we used a very similar process. We looked at updated ridership and costs, and we looked for new opportunities to efficiently serve new and growing markets. As a result of that review, we found that while we restored a bunch of weekend services last year, there were still some weekend services that we felt, to be restored, and we have about 3 of those proposals. We also saw that there were a number of issues where we felt it was important to provide service to address new, growing and underserved neighborhoods, and to serve employment and educational centers. We also wanted to continue our success with SBS, Select Bus Service, and to implement one route, which is yet to be determined, in 2014. In addition, we see in Staten Island that there's an opportunity to restructure express bus service and provide a super express bus that I'll discuss later in the presentation. The first proposal is that I want to talk about is a weekend service restoration, the M8. This bus operates across 8th and 9th Streets in Lower Manhattan, and we believe that implementing this service will benefit 1,400 riders on Saturday and about 1,000 on Sunday. Next is the Q31. This is another weekend service that we would like to restore. It serves eastern Queens. It serves some commercial centers, and restoring this service would benefit about 1,600 riders on Saturday and about 1,000 on Sunday. The Q77 is not a restoration. It's actually implementing a new day of service on Sunday. We found that Sunday ridership is coming closer to represent Saturday service, and this is our last route where we just provide 6-day-a-week service, and we'd like to make it a 7-day-a-week service. We believe that it'll benefit about 1,700 riders. The next service I want to talk about is increasing G service frequency from 3 to 9 p.m. This is a recommendation that we made in our recent G report. Basically, in looking at the service, we found that while on average we schedule a 10-minute headway, which is enough to carry the riders, when you actually go out there and look at the service is operating on 8 to 12-minute headways, and some of those 12-minute headways are actually becoming longer, 13 minutes, 14 minutes. Primarily, this is due to the fact that it has to merge with the F-line service, which operates on a 4 or 8-minute headway. So with this proposal, by making that the G an 8-minute headway, it should merge much better with the F, and we should have more consistent headways on the line. It's projected that this service investment will benefit over 51,000 riders on an average weekday. The second subway improvement is extending the M service from Myrtle Avenue to Delancey Street, Essex Street on weekends. The M line here serves growing neighborhoods, Bushwick, Williamsburg, Ridgewood, and we feel that by extending this service to Delancey, Essex, where riders can transfer to the F, it will greatly improve service. It will reduce the number of transfers and wait times for 15,000 riders on Saturday and about 12,000 riders on Sunday. We're not able to extend this route any further north in Manhattan up 6th Avenue due to the amount of work that we're doing on 6th Avenue. There just isn't the capacity to do so. The next service improvement is to restore service along 3rd Avenue in Brooklyn. This is where the B37 operated. This route would operate between Bay Ridge and Atlantic Avenue Barclays Center Station from 6 a.m. to about 11 p.m. It serves a growing commercial area and would restore service where we had relatively high ridership. In conjunction with this, we would restore the B70 service to 7th Avenue and the B8 to Bay Ridge 95th Street, the R station in Bay Ridge at all times. This would benefit 3,300 riders on an average weekday, about 1,900 riders on Saturday, and 1,200 riders on Sunday.
Is the implementation date because of PICS?
The implementation date is mid-2014, and yes, to get it in the schedule. We also want to take some time on this one because we're altering the route slightly. We're going to be shortening the route a little bit on its northern end at Atlantic Avenue. In part, we want to do that because we don't want the route to get stuck in downtown Brooklyn traffic, and we want to maintain, have good reliability, but we want to go out to the community and talk to them about this, so it provides a little time for that.
You should be careful because the only way to get to the Barclays Center is by subway these days. There's no other way to get there.
That's nice for communities and subways.
The next service improvement is to reroute the M100 bus in northern Manhattan. Right now, the Sherman Creek neighborhood is a quarter mile from any local bus service. It is served by the 1 train, but by rerouting the M100 for relatively low cost, we're able to serve this neighborhood. This bus would serve the commercial area across Dyckman Street, and it would serve Dyckman houses and a school that currently aren't served. It would benefit relatively low numbers of riders, but the cost is quite low for this reroute. In the Bronx, we're proposing to extend the BX24 to Hutchinson Metro Center from Westchester Square. This is to serve a growing campus of medical and government offices and a local college. Right now, buses come close to the development center, but they don't actually go on the campus. This would extend it onto the campus. The ridership that we project is relatively low now, but we think it's going to be a growing market, especially since over the next couple of years a 911 call center is going to be put in there, as well as a major hotel and conference center with additional office space. In Staten Island, we plan to add S93 service middays and evenings until 10 p.m. In January of this year, we extended this route onto the College of Staten Island. This bus operates between Bay Ridge and the College of Staten Island, and when we brought it onto the campus, ridership increased by 4.4%. We believe that this route, which currently operates just during peak periods, would benefit greatly by extending that all day. This would benefit a projected 1,000 riders per average weekday. As I mentioned before, we would like to continue the rollout of select bus service. Typically, in an SBS corridor, ridership goes up by about 10% and travel times decrease by about 20%. We've looked at several routes in our Phase 2 study. That's what's shown on the map. And we'd like to get some more community input, work with City DOT to determine exactly what that route would be for implementation in 2014. Back in Staten Island, in the Eltingville area, in Highland Boulevard, Richmond Avenue corridor, we believe that we could reroute some express buses. Currently, those areas are served with express buses. They go up Highland Boulevard into Brooklyn and then into Midtown Manhattan. By rerouting buses along the West Shore Expressway into New Jersey and through the Lincoln Tunnel into Midtown, we believe that we can provide a faster route. So we're looking to restructure those routes. We'll be working with communities and elected officials to develop exactly what that route might be and look at some additional ridership information. Lastly, in Co-op City, we're proposing to do a bus study jointly with MTA Bus. In 2010, we restructured the service in Co-op City. In our follow-up analysis, we found that ridership was still very strong, but we're still getting continued public concerns over the service there. So like what we did with the G study, we'd like to go out there and make sure that the service that we think is operating out there is actually being operated, look at its reliability, look at ridership patterns, and see if there aren't service gaps that we could possibly fill out there. And that's it for the service.
All right. Any further questions to Judy McLean on her wonderful restoration hardware? Chuck?
May I respectfully suggest that you may, in connection with the Co-op City study, check with the Bronx Borough President's Office and his planning group, and Wilhelm Miranda in that group. They are exceptionally knowledgeable and exceptionally cooperative, and they know what they're doing. And he appointed them.
Yes, we will.
Andrew?
Some of this you have heard from me already, Judy, when we did our briefing. Obviously, I'm delighted with most of these service restoration and enhancements. The G line was a long time coming, should have been done a long time ago. The top-to-bottom overhaul and study of the G line resulted in these things, so perhaps some other lines should maybe get a look at the same way this was done. As far as the extension of the M line to Delancey and Essex, like I said to Judy during the briefing, I think a much better bang for the buck, and she explained to me why it couldn't be done now, and I'm going to take Judy at her word, of course, but at some point, the J line on weekends needs to be extended one stop further. It's missing the biggest free transfer point in the city by one stop. You'd be amazed how many people are looking for the J line at Fulton. So maybe when Fulton Center opens, that's an opportune time. You wouldn't even have to put another train set on. It's one station further. Even if you went to Broad Street, 2 stations further, it's still not even another train.
Yeah, as we mentioned to you, we'll certainly look at that as the Fulton Street work
that's great.
Comes to conclusion. And please keep in mind that all the service ads that we're making here are ads that we really felt are sustainable. In other words, even if we continue to have money problems, once we add this service, we want to keep it. So
sure.
That's one of the premises we're working under as we go forward here.
And wait, I'm not done. The last thing I wanted to say was something that keeps getting forgotten was that when we had the Chambers Street fire, B Division headways were reduced, well, I should say, were lengthened from 8 minutes to 10 minutes on the A and the C line. Those were never restored. And to still have those during the off-peak periods, I mean, you're seeing some real crowds on the A and the C line, and it would be good at some point if that was looked at as a restoration at some point.
Okay.
Alan? Yeah, and I will speak more to this in finance, but this is terrific, and I understand the prudency of putting in sustainable service and not wanting to be in a position where we have to roll back. But I would also point out that the service quality initiatives that we're putting in are equally as valuable, and some of those are, in fact, one-time expenditures, cameras for the MetroCard machines, additional signage that we have in other areas, and all of this are investments in our riders. And this is a big deal, and we ought not to be bashful about that.
That's a wonderful segue into what Joe will talk about in terms of service quality. And again, this piece goes right to the customer's experience. It's it's what they see, it's what they experience as they come into our stations and use our service. So Joe, why don't you take us through it quickly?
Okay, thank you. As Carmen mentioned earlier, in our proposal we have some service quality enhancements, and providing service is important. Moving people from one place to another is important. But our customers' expectation is really what we're looking for, and when we look at that, we need to keep in mind quality, safety, and security. And we believe these 5 proposals will have the great potential to improve our customers' experience and significantly impact millions of riders each day. Our first proposal is to increase the frequency of subway station tracks that are cleaned. Litter on the tracks is a fuel for our fires, and while we've overall seen a great success in our fast track area, what we've seen in the other areas that aren't in fast track this year, we've seen an increase in fires, as Cheryl Kennedy discussed before. In 2010, we reduced our cleaning crews from 20 to 15, and in this proposal, we are looking to put back 2 of those teams. And we believe this proposal will reach all customers system-wide. Our second proposal surrounds our enhanced station cleaning program. This cleaning program provides additional cleaning as well as additional mobile wash and maintenance on those stations. And the stations that have been targeted are stations with high ridership and stations that have been recently renewed. And the idea is, making sure that the investment that we make into those stations, that we keep up on them. It's very similar to what Vinnie DiMarino said before, the broken windows theory. When something breaks, fix it right away. You want to keep up on it. At the end of 2013, we will have 60 stations enrolled in this program, and what we're looking here for this proposal is to add an additional 10 stations. And we believe this proposal will benefit about 479,000 customers. The third proposal is to address delays and service delivery. As you know, we've said before, ridership continues to increase, and we're capacity constrained. One area that we can continue to work at is to better manage and control as incidents occur and provide us the best service that we can while we have some of our failures. By adding resources to the RCC, we believe we can expand on the functionality of automatic train supervision. In 2012, for a period of 3 months, we piloted this, and what we saw was an improvement in weight assessment, approximately 3%. So we believe by adding these additional resources, we could get back that 3% plus more. and this proposal will benefit all customers on the 1 through 6 line. Our next proposal is to improve station access and egress into our stations as a result of the queuing issues that takes place. You know, many of our IRT stations are very narrow platforms, and our customers are, you know, very well skilled, knowing that, you know, to get off at the station entrance I want, it'd be best to get off on the first and second car. But the minute they get off, they're faced with our gates. We believe by redesigning or relaying out the current control line, which includes the heats, the turnstiles, and the gates, we can reduce this queuing capacity, or even by relocating that control line, maybe up a landing. In addition, we've identified 54 stations where we have a staff booth on one platform, and on the other platform, no staff booth, and there's no way to cross over. And there's times our customers will come up onto the unstaffed portion of that station and will not be able to get in the gate, or may have reasons to get in touch with our agent. And what we're suggesting here is to install remote gate controls that will allow them access in once they get the station agent's attention. We believe the team that we can put together can provide or address 2 of these station entrances, as well as 2 remote gate locations per month. This proposal will benefit about 176,000 customers, and as we continue to add on more and more stations, that population of customers will increase. And finally, our last service quality proposal was a one-time expenditure to install 10 cameras at 10 fare control areas to assist the NYPD in arresting MVM vandals. On a monthly basis, we provide the NYPD with our stats of all MVM machines that are vandalized, and they use these stats to target their resources into those stations. But typically, when they respond or get there, they're just faced with somebody selling swipes, but the damage is already done. We've lost the MVMs until we can get a maintainer out there to correct the problem. By adding these cameras, not only will we get a charge of selling swipes, we will get a charge of vandalizing machines. And that will just tack on the charges, and hopefully we can get these repeat offenders off our system. We believe this proposal will benefit about 76,000 employees. And that's
Thank you, Joe Leader, Senior Vice President of Subways Acting, a job you once had, as I remember, did you not?
Yes, sir.
The only thing that I believe that we have left, and I apologize to all the subsequent committees for delaying them, is to recognize the fabulous Dr. Michael H., Dr. H., Michael Haradnachanu, who has probably the most stress-free, simple, and uncomplicated job in the entire MTA. Dr. H.?
Okay.
Yes, I am.
Can I just say that I think it's fabulous you're providing the remote access to the stations with no booth agent and no crossover. Folks have had a real tough time trying to get in for various reasons, and now being able to communicate with the full-time booth agent is going to be a real terrific thing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let me walk you through the MTACC projects, starting with Fulton Center. We continue to make actually good progress, and we now has less than 1 year to complete. We expect to open in June 2014. Okay, this is the progress. We are really moving well. And you can see the cladding already from the outside. We had a little setback, and that had to do with the fire that some of you have heard about. It happened on the Oculus that's area right there, and they were installing and welding 2 pieces of cladding, and apparently that coincided at the same time with the joint that was actually below for the fireproofing. That was actually extremely localized, yet when the fire department showed up next, they kind of took out a lot of these things looking to see if there's more. It wasn't. That would be restored,
And the key here, we are actually looking right now and conducting an investigation, and we want to make sure that that will not repeat itself as they're completing the work. The real next. The important part is actually to see that the sky reflector netting that you will see, and this is up there, is proceeding. This is the interior work and is moving actually at a very accelerated pace. The architect, artist, engineer that created this sky reflector netting as it's being completed, and then actually that's going to bring light all the way down. This is the one that I'm talking about. It was made out of 952 reflective metal panels that were all put together, and we actually have a pretty, that's a beautiful picture that was taken actually by Patrick, our MTA photographer. I would like to...
Is that your office, or is that Fulton Street in general?
Well, this Fulton Street in general. The number 7 line extension is the next project that we expect to complete again. Go. Okay, the expectation is also we'll be completing this next June. And just wanted to give you a few pictures. Right now, approximately 90% of the construction required for revenue service has been completed. And you will see some, this is the installation of cable work in running tunnels, the signal installation. This is the north interlocking, then we have a southern interlocking. And these are actually, this work progresses. I'm there quite often. This is the station platform level. Just to give you a sense, this is looking south at the stair opening. And then in the mezzanine area, this is actually the station mezzanine with the stairs. And then when it's done, I'm just kind of trying to superimpose what we expect to achieve when we're done in certain locations. The next one is, again, the platform level, and that's the same one when it's completed. In effect, at this point, the work is proceeding. We completed 3 of the contracts, and then we right now have the site J that we're about 99% complete. It's not totally done yet. And then the secondary station entrance at site P will not be done for the opening. It will be done about a year and a half after that, or close to, a year and a half after that, in 16. That's it. Let's go to 2nd Avenue. The 2nd Avenue work, actually, we have all of the contracts in place. And the work is moving forward. One of the things that we are going to be doing, and this is in a couple of days, we're opening a community information center on 2nd Avenue where people can come and actually can be there, can experience what we're doing underground. Continuously we're updating the information, and that will be opening this Thursday. Thursday? Yeah, I think Thursday, right. 96th Street Station, it's... we have reconfigured the existing north tunnel between 99th and 105th Street, and we have the bench there. In the 96th Street, we're at this moment placing the mezzanine slab. This is the support for the mezzanine. We're taking down the struts as we do that. This is the concrete placement. The work is kind of, we're working in a lot of areas at the same time, so the work is moving forward. At 86th Street Station, one of the things, this is an ancillary number 2, but what is important here that in August we will finish blasting. The blasting is only going to occur in some of the ancillary areas, but the cavern will be done, and we started to actually do additional work and place concrete. This is a look at a building, entrance number 1. beneath 303. This is called Archstone Building, and we have actually underpinned the southern end of the building. This is the foundation. It wasn't quite like this when we got there. It was in dirt, so we actually underpin it. It's kind of a complex thing, and is looking down. This is looking down at the mezzanine level that we're going to be getting to. This is the work right now at the southern end, and you can see that we are placing the inverts and the utilities under there. It's quite intense, and the expectation is that they will finish this. We started about 4 months late, unfortunately, due to a snag in awarding the contract, and we're trying to make up time, but this is for us on the critical path for the whole Second Avenue. This is one area that we're working in front of the Yorkshire building. Unfortunately, until now, we are ramming, not a pleasant thing, and we expect actually to start blasting. That will, although some people are kind of looking at it circumspectly, blasting only you do twice or 3 times a day. The blast lasts for about 10 seconds. This is continuous, so that will improve the quality of life, I believe, and we expect to cover it. 72nd Street Station is moving rather well. We placed the walls, and we're now placing the mezzanine and the arch. This is the arch that was completed in the main cavern. One of the good things about it, the Max house that was installed in August 26, 2011, we started to dismantle it. There's a picture in June, there's a picture in July, and this is July 11. We're done. We have a couple of steel that we still need to take down, but this is going to be basically removed, and the people will regain the view of the street at least. That's basically it.
All right. Any further questions for the fabulous Dr. H? Any further business before the meeting? If not, we will conclude the meeting. Thank you all very much. And once again, I apologize for our delay. Subsequent committees.
I did it fast.